So, as some of you guys know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. As someone who currently seeks therapy and struggles with mental health myself, I'm going to be very open in this video. I've noticed that a lot of videos you are exposed to on social media mainly contain women's mental health, but I don't see much, or, well, women's mental health and teens' mental health, but I don't see much about kids' mental health, adults' mental health, and men's mental health. So, I would like to cover some of those topics. So, kids can obviously go through mental health struggles too, even if they don't show it or express it properly, or adults, parents, guardians, whatever, notice it. As a kid, I have gone through mental health struggles. I used to be very well socialized. Over time, I grew away from it, and also, I'm just gonna summarize it down. My household was very loud at the time. It still is. But as a kid, that really shaped me to who I am now. Online, I have this persona, obviously. It's kind of a thing. Everybody has a persona online. Nothing's real online. But in person, I tend to lash out a lot because I was never properly taught how to show my emotions properly without lashing out. I never learned to control it, obviously. And also, growing up in a loud household also brought emotional struggles upon me. I've struggled with addiction, whether it was substance abuse or just, topics of self harm, I would say. Um, Self harm comes in many ways. I will add on to that. So, as a child, that's what I grew up with, and that's how it shaped me to be today. That's also adding on to teens' mental health. And then teens also grow up around this culture where beauty is important and grades will get you everywhere that you need to be in life, but sometimes teens can't really, per se, control that. As an adolescent myself, it's hard to focus in school, especially because so many finals are coming up right now, so it's just summative after summative in every class. And the fact that you're just thrown into the outside world once you graduate, it's hard, and that adds on to adult mental health. There's hundreds of cases of suicide per year that include adults and their mental health struggles. Um, it even goes on to when you're a senior citizen. Take some war veterans, for example. So many of those war veterans have trauma from what they have seen through war, and that continued with them throughout their entire life because PTSD and everything. There's thousands and millions of cases of PTSD with military veterans. And so sometimes they decide to seek help, obviously, but sometimes they don't and they live through that, along with any other age category. Some teens seek therapy, some adults seek therapy, some don't. And that shapes them to be who they are when they grow up and whatnot. But to add on to what I mentioned before is boys and men's mental health. See, it's very, I wouldn't say shallow, it's just very hidden. You don't see much exposure to it on social media at all, really. You mainly see things about females' mental health and teens' mental health and whatnot, but everybody has mental health struggles. Um, in my English class a few weeks ago, we watched a quote unquote motivational video. Um, it said, from what I remember anyways, it said 1 in 3 teenage boys in the United States alone attempt suicide or have thoughts of suicide, and sometimes they even pass with that. So just that in consideration is hard to think about, especially when you add all of it up. But there's so many suicides per year in the United States that nobody really pays attention to. And that's hard to think about, obviously, because suicide is a very important topic. And there's obviously also suicides in many other continents and regions and whatnot. So, just imagine how many deaths there are per year to mental health struggles alone. It's it's terrible, to say the least. It's terrible. And as some of you guys know, there's also more mental health like conditions and behavioral like issues that nobody really talks about. The most people focus on is PTSD, bipolar disorder, depression, suicidal tendencies, and anxiety, but if you really go through the rabbit hole, there's so many more to that, including personality disorders. And, for example, schizophrenia is actually another mental health thing because it can affect somebody and they can do things that, you know, may harm them or possibly others. But there's a lot to mental health that people don't really pay attention to per se. Um, I'm not gonna mention names, but another topic to add on to like boys' mental health and men's mental health. I have a very close friend, and he went through trauma, serious trauma, I would say. And whenever I'm on call with him, I like hear things, not terrible things per se, but yelling, and just knowing that somebody's going through that, it's hard, especially if that person's very close to you. Um, he actually sought help, thankfully, and he also used to struggle with substance abuse, as many people struggle with now, especially adolescents. Because they're raised around like drug culture and all that, and it kind of just like brings them into it sometimes, especially in school. I know that a lot of schools have students who do drugs in bathrooms and whatnot, such as nicotine, weed, that those sorts of stuff. Just a few months ago, we actively had an overdose at my school, so that's another thing related to mental health. Um, even the baby boomer population is affected by mental health, and I've noticed that. Just to add on to the age category, um, I was raised around baby boomers. That's just who I was raised around. My grandparents, they struggle with it. My grandma's told me about her trauma and how it still moderately affects her. She doesn't tell me too much, but she still tells me a bit about whatever in her past. Um, and so it just proves that every day you don't know what somebody could be going through because they don't say anything. A lot of people don't. Um, so I think it's just have some courtesy and consideration for others instead of immediately jumping to a conclusion, like if you see somebody's like scars, don't jump to conclusions because they may still be going through that, and it's obviously not nice to judge people if they have those sorts of scars. Or if they open up to you, just have consideration about how they feel and like how they might feel opening up to you in that moment. Obviously, don't always let people open up because knowing some sorts of things, it could also drag you down. But if you notice something, just say something. That's all you can really do, especially when it comes down to that. And if you ever run into a situation where somebody might commit suicide, it's best to not try to grab them or anything or just like pull them away. Just talk to them and keep them busy, and maybe it might get their mind off of it, and possibly you could even call your local authorities while you talk to them, so you know that they'll be in safe hands later on. Um, as someone who has talked people out of that, it's most certainly not the best idea to like try and pull them away. Just talk to them and try and get their mind off of it, because sometimes it may help, sometimes it might work. Just knowing somebody out there cares for you is a huge thing most times. But just keep it in mind that you never know what somebody could be going through, so just have courtesy and empathy for others. And that's all I really have to say in this video. Obviously, I didn't mention many topics, but I feel like I covered a bit of it at least. Just a tiny bit. At least to gain some semblance and knowledge of it. And if you really feel like it, you could always look into certain topics more on your own, which I feel like is highly encouraged, especially since it's Mental Health Awareness Month. But just keep it all in mind.